I was a senior in high school the first time I heard about the genocide in Darfur. The focused killings, the policies of rape, the images disturbed me. From the beginning, I felt a responsibility to do something. After the Holocaust, Jews are taught that we have an obligation to stop genocides everywhere. We are particularly well primed to empathize with the plight of the Darfuris, what they've lived and died through. As a result of that empathy, we are called to take action, then I too was called to take action. In the beginning, I thought that I would, don the blue beret and join a UN army staffed of other 18-year-olds. We would establish perimeters and protect the people behind them. Fight fire with fire. It was naive, but I had my heart in the right place. Yet I learned that things are not so simple. In Darfur, as conflicts of any sort, the origins are not clear. Although someone invariably must throw the first punch, the events that direct and influence conflict are impacted by a variety of factors. It gets even more complicated because the factors include decisions and actions that we take here in the United States. Big or small, everyday actions impact our world in ways that we rarely think of. Ultimately, it is because our actions have impact that I believe that all of our actions should always have positive benefits. In theory, that sounds perfect. Do the right thing. But it's not always easy to know if the actions that we take are positive or negative. We lack the knowledge that would ensure that we are truly humanitarian consumers. I don't know if this coffee cup that I bought was produced in safe factory conditions. I don't know if the apples that I purchased were made using pesticides. But if I purchase these things, then I perpetuate the effects of those unsafe factories or those pesticides. In effect, I create those farms no matter how far away I am. Despite the difficulty, it is essential to try and make positive decisions. Otherwise, the impacts can be dire. Especially in places like Darfur, where the knowledge gap is especially large. Take the case of my university that was indirectly involved in the genocide of Darfur. Every year, new donations are put into endowment funds that financially support the university, and some of that money was invested in companies in the Sudan. Studies conducted by the Save Darfur campaign, the International Crisis Group, and Yale University explored the relationships between companies and the violence that was perpetrated there. International telecommunications companies would turn off cell phone reception for areas targeted by the government. Oil companies paid the governments directly, failing to develop transparency initiatives that would show how the money was being spent. Thus, the government bought weapons and engaged in military actions against the Darfuri people. My university and hundreds of other colleges and other universities, along with pension funds owned by U.S. states, were invested in these companies. They didn't realize that their choices were inadvertently harming the Sudanese people. They had never intended to do harm. Yet in the end, our actions, albeit indirectly, have done harm to the people of Darfur. When I learned that so many American investments were funding the genocide, I realized that my choice to live in Pennsylvania, a state with investments in companies who did business in the Sudan, and to go to Pitt, could impact the world in a way that I would not be proud of. I resolved to change the practices of my university, hoping that once they learned of their investments, they would change their behavior. I set out to learn about my university's investment choices. At first, it was not easy. We were stonewalled before we gained any traction. But eventually, through a coordinated campaign that I developed, we were able to break through. My group, an association of different student organizations, like Hillel and Save Darfur, we were able to make significant headway. We worked as a pressure group outside the university, through flyers, petitions, and speeches, as well as internal criticisms, where we teamed up with the administration to find a solution. We discovered that Pitt was invested in a company doing business in the Sudan. We encouraged shareholder engagement by asking our university and our supporters to join with thousands of others in asking for the company to change its policies. Eventually it worked, and the company changed its practices, and I knew that my investment at Pitt was a morally responsible one. Tzedek, tzedek, JewDoer. Justice, justice you shall pursue. Judaism teaches us to seek justice. This means more than community service on the weekends or giving money to specific charities. It means ensuring that the root causes for inequality and violence are not perpetrated. It means changing our actions to ensure that we're doing the right thing, that all of our actions are positive ones. This is what I believe.